Welcome to Chapter Sass, the podcast where we deep dive into the books that make you blush, gasp, and maybe even think a little. I'm your host, Season, and with every book, I'll be joined with a new co-host with their own hot take. From spicy romances to messy love triangles and all the glorious chaos in between, we're here with a fresh perspective to unpack the stories we love, question what we think we know, and explore how the book speaks to us. Things might even get a little sassy. This episode is rated mature and will contain spoilers. Let's get into the first chapter. Welcome back, everyone. So we're going to start off a new series. We're going to do the Bridgerton series. We're going to start off with The Duke and I. This is the first book in the Bridgerton series. Like I said, I'm probably going to say Bridgerton about 101 times. Yes! By Julia Quinn. We're going to discuss the book first, and then we're going to go into the Netflix show season 1. But I have a new co-host today, Anna. Hello, how are you? Introduce yourself. Tell us some fun facts about you.
Hello, I am great. I would say a fun fact about me, I live in Chicago, which is not super fun, but also very fun. I am dating a real life hockey goalie. I think that's a really important fun fact to mention with, the heated rivalry game changer series hype that's going on right now in not just the book community, but like everywhere. But yeah, I used to do acting like full time musical theater all over the country. And now I have found a home in Chicago and met Season. Woo.
Yeah, when I found out you were an actress, I was like, wait, what? Oh my gosh, love it. But, we were introduced, but like, I do like that way I surround myself with all like different folks and whatnot. Love it. Okay, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a vanilla rooibos tea
Oh,
tonight.
yay. As all of you guys can see, first, Anna knows this. I am very extra. Extra is my middle name, unofficially. So it's Bridgerton, so I have my crown on. I have my necklace on. I decorated all this. I have my Princess Diana ring on, even though it's not Bridgerton. It is in the, royal family. I had a murder mystery, so that's how I have this ring. It was like a royal murder mystery. I am also drinking some tea, but I infused mine with some gin. It tastes very good. I will post it because I use this African gin, and it's amazing with a little bit of simple syrup because I don't really like sweets, but it's like passion tea. It's very delicious.
Ooh, yum.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.
I might need to take off my necklace. I know you said it looked gorgeous, but I am like distracting myself with the light. I'm just like glittering everywhere. Also, for everyone who's watching, I don't know if I'm decorating all this. This was a lot of work. Doubt I'm doing it for the next episode. So this is probably the one time I might throw a crown on because that's pretty simple. But this was a lot of work, so probably not. But we'll continue. Okay.
Just leave it up the whole Bridgerton season.
Yeah, we're not leaving this up. It actually might fall down. Who knows? I'm very scared. We might see real life things happen. We'll see. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start off with the book really quickly. We'll deep dive into some chapters. We'll get some of our thoughts and then we'll go into the movies. So The Duke and I starts off with the prologue and we get Simon's story right away. So Simon, author Henry, I can't say the whole other was like almost like Fitzgerald, but it wasn't. But we're going to just skip it. Bassett, Earl of Cleveland, was the heir to one of England's oldest and richest dukedoms. All this father wanted was an heir, aka a son, because he cannot have a daughter. And this time it was the boys that were quote unquote important. But he wanted a son so the family line could continue. The Duchess of Hastings, Simon's mother, had 5 miscarriages before Simon was even born. In fact, she was told to stop trying because it would put her life at risk. And then the book states, but the Duchess, God bless her, and I'm quoting this from the book, knew her role in life and attempted for another child. The moment came, the baby was born, and the Duke was very pleased that the baby was a boy, so he finally got his son. The Hastings name would continue. After the labor, the Duchess could not stop bleeding and eventually passed away. And then the book states, because I do think this is a little bit different in the movie, that the Duke actually like mourned his wife, like he truly did. He wasn't like in love with her, but like and she hadn't loved him, but they had been friends in like a weird, odd way. And the Duke hadn't expected anything more from this marriage than a son. And in regards to that, his wife had proven that she was successful in that. So he always arranged like fresh flowers to be laid at the base of her funeral monument, no matter like what season it was, and he brought her portrait in it so like everyone could see it on like the grand staircase. The Duke left to carry on with his life and then came back when Simon was 2. Simon was not yet speaking, but his nurse explained that some children just take longer than others. The Duke left and then came back when Simon was 4, and Simon was still not speaking. The Duke threatened to hit Simon, and then that made Simon like speak up for himself, but he had a stutter. This was not acceptable according to the Duke, and he pretty much like disowns his son and leaves. And the nurse is very overprotective of Simon and spends the next years, like few years, teaching him how to speak, how to control his emotions, and how not to stutter. She was like his unofficial mother, through life. Simon is now 11 and he has not yet seen his father since he was 4. And Simon's much better like controlling his stutter and can like speak much better. He can control his emotions. So he asks to go visit his dad. So the nurse and Simon go visit his dad. Everyone thinks that Simon is dead because the Duke has like never really mentioned him. And this upsets Simon a lot to the point where he starts to stutter again. So when he sees the Duke is not pleased and sends them both home, but Simon made a vow that day that if he couldn't be the son his father wanted, then by God, he would be the exact opposite. And from here on out, I'm not necessarily going to go in like the order of the book. I'm just going to be like chapters 1 through 5. This was like the main things that happen because otherwise we'd be here for 5 hours and none of us have time for that. But pretty much you'll get the info. But if something happened like in chapter 5, but it kind of relates to chapter 1, I'll put it together. I know it sounds confusing, but trust me, I reread my notes. It makes perfect sense. Before I continue though, but in going chapter 1, any thoughts on the prologue?
Yeah, what I love about like, I didn't know this, Bridgerton was the first, like, romance book I ever read,
Oh,
and with, like, a traditional romance, you meet, like, your maybe, like, male equivalent and, like, your female equivalent, and you know from, like, the first 2 chapters who the players are, and I think even with, like, this book, like, you even see it sometimes before where they might, like, mention it. Not this one, but I think some of the other ones you see the family tree. So you know, and you're like, "Oh, it's not a matter of, it's like who, it's a matter of how and when." And so I thought it was really interesting, like, that the book, like, it starts with his story, even
oh,
though, like, sometimes it usually starts with, like, maybe, like, the female story. So I thought that was, like, a really cool, I mean, that's, like, starting to get into the differences already with, like, the Netflix show
mhm.
versus the
Yeah.
book,
I mean,
but
and we'll get into that too more. Yeah, love it. No, but
yeah.
honestly, that is a great perspective. The prologue is, yeah, and we get a lot of information in the prologue, and the prologue is why I think like 5 pages. I have the
Mhm.
ebook, so I don't know the exact number of pages. It's like the font I pick and whatnot, but we get a lot of information. Actually, it might be a little bit longer because he.
It's 14 pages for the
Oh, okay.
prologue,
So
so
mine was
we get a
just,
lot of Simon's story.
yeah.
I'll have to get up.
I love it. Okay, so chapters 1 through 5. So the book starts off at the Bridgertons with Violet and Daphne reading the Lady Whistledown Society papers. And here we're introduced to the 8 Bridgertons who have their names in alphabetical order, which is very important. So we have Anthony. I say Anthony. The mom always says Anthony, like with or like she like emphasizes like the T so much when she Violet in the TV show. So I'm not sure, but Anthony.
I think it's I think it's the dialect with, like, a British
Oh,
dialect that it's Anthony and, like, in their worlds
yes.
versus
Our
we're
world. Okay,
like,
yeah. So
"Anthony."
Antony, Benedict, Colin, Daphne, Eloise, Francesca, Gregory, and Hyacinth. And we're told right away that all the Bridgertons look alike, and there cannot be any doubt that they're not legitimate. Which in this time is great because you can't take a paternity test. So this is the best way
Yes.
to do it. So in the book, Daphne has been in the marriage season for 2 years and still doesn't have a suitable potential husband. The book also states that like Daphne is pretty like ordinary looking, like she's not like deadbeat gorgeous, like she's just like normal looking to society standards. And so right away, though, we are given the importance that Daphne wants children. Like her and Violet are like going back and forth. They're having like a mother-daughter like little rant type of situation, but it's like a loving rant. And then Violet just says, I hope you have a daughter that's just like you one day. And like Daphne's like, I'm sure you would like just right away we're introduced to the importance of children. The Duke of Hastings, aka Simons, is now back in town with his old friend and Daphne's older brother, Antony. And it's confirmed that Simon is a rake. Sort of, because we also learn a little bit later that, like, yeah, he slept around, but he didn't do it more than anybody else. But it's just because he's a man and because he, like, always, like, he didn't want to be around people or whatever. He was, like, given this reputation that wasn't necessarily true, but like that's what society gave him. But he has slept around. So, in those terms, he is a rake. And Simon pretty much has made something of himself. Like his father, like, was never in his life. As he got older, his father did try to come back into his life, but he pretty much, never really entertained that idea. And so Simon just tells Anthony that he just wishes like to not join society. He doesn't want a wife, he doesn't want children. His connection with Lady Danbury is through like I know I'm comparing to Netflix and I said I wasn't. I thought like for the longest time it was like her nephew or something. Here he only knows Lady Danbury because he was friends with Lady Danbury's nephew, who he would then come home during like like school holidays and hang out because he would never go home. So she always just treated him with care. And so he just has respect for her. And so he's only in town to attend the ball that she's throwing, but pretty much he just wants to go in, say hi, and leave, Irish goodbye it. Like that's all he wants. But the book kind of makes it seem like she was a little bit of a mother figure to her since had he never had one. And so then we go ahead and they're like talking about marriage. And I'll come back to this when we get to Anthony's book, but he kind of mentions like when he's looking for a wife, he wants someone who like can have a conversation and is intelligent and like doesn't, only talk about the weather. And I think that's funny because we hit on that a little bit later. And so they talk about like Daphne, being now on the market like once again. Simon's just like, has she not had any suitors? And Anthony says, no, she's gotten offers, but for men who are old enough to be her father, old enough to be her father's younger brother, and one that is rather too high in instep. And like one who is like dim-headed, aka Nigel. So like Nigel is from the get-go is just like someone we don't want to marry. And so now it's
Woof.
the night of the ball. Yeah. Now it's the night of the ball, and it's Lady Danbury's ball, and Colin is back from his travels. So Colin's another Bridgerton son. He's just back. No one was expecting him. Daphne is cornered by Nigel because he wants to marry her and propose to her, and they're alone in a room together. And Daphne's pretty much telling Nigel to like leave her alone, and he doesn't. He's like, "I love you. Can't you see we need to be together?" But she can't really be alone with him. And so Simon is like entering through like another door and hears Daphne saying like, leave me alone, and so he thinks he has to go rescue her. And so when he comes to like her defense, she like punches Nigel and like knocks him unconscious. Simon like reveals himself because he was like hiding. And for the first time, our lovers meet. And Simon also thinks she's not the most beautiful, but is intrigued by her and is already getting some spicy thoughts. Like, what would it be to touch her breasts? He just met her. Uh, Simon now realizes that this is Daphne Bridgerton, his friend's younger sister, and he tells himself he needs to stop thinking these thoughts. She's off limit. Immediately, Simon and Daphne like start their lovers banter, like going back and forth, like who's right. And Simon like did not get his wish that he thought he could enter the ball and leave and no one would notice him. He like enters the ball, but before people like he tries to get out, he runs into a friend, and that friend's wife is trying to make it to society. So announces like really loudly, "Oh my God, the Duke's here." And now all the mamas are trying to play matchmaker. Then we're introduced to the Featheringtons, and it says, Miss Featherington had 3 daughters who have been introduced to society: Prudence, Philippa, and Penelope. They were 2 peasant looking ones, but the third was still cloaked in her baby fat and in like a very ugly orangey gown that did nothing for her complexion. Then Miss Featherington also says, I have another daughter at home, Felicity, but she's near 10 age, so I did not want to bring her to such events. And I've read all the Bridgerton books, but I forgot what happened to, like, it's been a minute since I read it. And I was like, who is Felicity? And why does she have an F name and not a P name? Do you remember or no?
I don't remember. No, like, I first read all of them, like, probably, like, 5, 6 years ago or
Yeah,
something.
same. I
Like,
was like,
I saw Netflix Daphne's and Simon season first, then I read the book, but for all of the others, I read the books first. So, the going back and forth, it's really interesting because there's so much, like, bopping around and, like, certain inspo taken, but not necessarily executed, and, like, I was, like, trying to keep track of, like, "Here's the differences here, and here's the," and then I'm like, "Oh my goodness." But I love what they did because they really stayed true to the book while
mhm,
making it a more enjoyable, like, TV series show because you can't follow the book verbatim and, like, have that be intriguing. In the same way, it's a different medium.
and like I also so I did read these last 2 books. I read Gregory's and Hyacinth's probably like the last like within the last like few months, but it's been a minute, like years. I think I read this one in like 2022 the first time I read it. So I like
Yeah.
don't remember who this fourth daughter is, and I'm like, was she mentioned? Is this supposed to be like Morena kind of sort of like in the Netflix?
No,
I was like,
no.
she well, yeah, because I know now because Eloise character, but I was like, I forgot this. I don't remember. So clearly she is mentioned in later books. She's not important enough for me to remember
Yeah,
at
no,
all. Yeah. But I was
with
like, oh,
the with the
okay.
book for this book, when it starts with Daphne being like, she's been on the market for, like, 2 years already, all the guys have friend zoned her, like, and you're just like, "This is not this is not what I just saw." Or
Yeah.
if you read it and then you watch it, you're like, "This is so different." It's just, like, such a different starting point. I, like, kind of love that difference, but also, like, with, like, Simon and her when they meet for the first time, like, one of the things that I love, like, he didn't wanna go rescue her. He was, like, so annoyed. He heard this lover's tip and was like, "Oh, you know, whatever," and then, like, is like, "Oh, she actually needs my help. Ugh, I guess I have to go help because you know, honor and duty and all that." And so, like,
Uh,
begrudgingly goes, then sees this woman, sees what's going on. He's like, "I love you," and then she just eventually, she tries to de-escalate, but she can't, and then she clocks him, and the first thing Simon does is laugh. He just laughs, and, like, that's what I think is, like, kind of the difference between her and maybe the other girls he's met,
yeah.
is that laughter aspect.
That, but honestly, I also would have laughed, being completely honest, like, if
Oh,
because
yeah.
it was, like, you know, something that you're not, like, necessarily used to seeing, so I also would have laughed, I loved it, yeah. So we're at the ball, and Simon and Daphne are forced to dance. Really, Simon is just trying to avoid, like, the Featheringtons and all the other, like, mamas at this point, so he just, like, dances with Daphne, and they dance for a while, and, while they're dancing, Daphne and Simon talk, and Simon just starts to go like he doesn't really want kids. He doesn't care if he loses his title. Daphne tells him she wants a family and all this. So, like, again, very early on, we know the other one knows what the other one wants, I guess, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
But then Simon and Daphne kind of talk about how like society treats them. And Simon is just like aggressively pursued while Daphne is treated like a friend rather than a romantic prospect. And they realize that they have problem. They have kind of like the same problem, but just opposite. So Simon comes up with the idea of fake dating. Daphne and Simon will date so that she'll become more desirable because he's a duke. And Daphne dating Simon means like all the mamas will back off. So that is the end of that lump. And then we go to chapter 6 and 10. You kind of gave me your spiel, but like what were your thoughts on this lover or I guess friends to lovers, how they set this up?
Yeah, I mean, like, I love a good, like, friends to lovers. I thought it was really interesting, like, that he didn't know because like, he didn't know who she was, but, like, had those feelings and then finds out who she is and then is like, "What?" And so, I wonder, from, aside if, maybe yeah, he wants to get away from, the Featheringtons, so, yeah, maybe this might help, but, I wonder how much of it is, that, kind of, undercurrent of curiosity of, that pull, because it just doesn't make sense maybe from his perspective on, why he would wanna do that otherwise, I don't think it's totally, altruistic of, and it's not formed to be, altruistic, it's, "Get them off my back," but I wonder if he's like, "Oh, she's cool. She is a friend. This is safe."
Love it, love it. Okay, chapter 6 through 10. So the next day, Daphne has 6 suitors and the plan is working. However, Simon all of a sudden is not like thrilled about these suitors because he does like go visit them. So he's already getting jealous and he just met Daphne. Anthony Antony, sorry, wants to protect his sister from Simon. And honestly, like all the other like men, like the whole joke is like the reason why no one's really proposed to her and keeps her friend zone is because of all her brothers. So like, and now he's trying to protect her from Simon because he knows Simon intentions are not like the best for all this. Simon and Daphne agree that they were never going to tell anyone about like what's going on, but then they realize that in order to keep up the charade that they will have to tell Anthony at some point. So they do tell him that they are fake dating. Daphne tells him like I have 6 suitors. I haven't had this and this is my 3rd year. It's working, leave us alone, like let this work. So he's like okay, but he does know that they're fake dating. So Simon joins the Bridgertons at dinner and he just sees how a huge family like interacts. And this is something that he's never had before because he's pretty much like been by himself the whole time. And then he gets invited to like their boating outing in Greenwich. Or I don't know, I might be saying it wrong, but they're just going on their boat
Greenwich,
out.
maybe?
Yeah, Greenwich. Yeah, there we go. I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm saying that wrong. During the trip, Daphne, like, talks about her siblings, a lot. Simon interacts with the siblings a lot, and she, like, states, like, while they piss her off, she cannot imagine life without them, like, and she just does not want one kid. And now at this point, Daphne starts to feel something for Simon, like, in her head, but she's not, like, saying anything out loud. And Simon is at least admitting it to, like, himself that he kind of, again, is having feelings for her. He can't admit that he has feelings for her, but he's seeing this dynamic of this family and he likes it. Like, he doesn't, like, hate this big family dynamic that's going on. He's intrigued by it, honestly, especially with Hyacinth, like, that, like, their whole dynamic is so cute. So then we start off with Lady Whistledown. Now we're like chapter 9, and we start off with Lady Whistledown calling Simon and Daphne out on their relationship because Simon is like they're supposed to be courting and dating, but he hasn't been really coming up, like showing up or anything. And so, leave it to our gossip lady to go ahead and tell us that what's going on here. Simon's staying away because he knows that she needs to find a husband, Daphne needs to find a husband, and he's not thrilled about it. So he's just like staying away. So now they're both realizing that they're falling in love with each other. And then, guys, it happens. Simon and Daphne go into the garden. They kiss. Things get steamy in the book. Things get a little steamy in the book. And then they realize that not only like are they kissing, but their bodies are wanting this, are very attracted to each other. Then Anthony finds them, and while they're like fighting, while Anthony and Simon are fighting, they accidentally push like Daphne into the bush, and she like scratches herself and like she's like a mess now. And Anthony demands Simon marry her, but he says he cannot. So Anthony does what one does at this time and challenges him to a duel because we have no other way to hash this out but to pull out some guns and shoot each other. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think we do have other ways, but also the how they're found in the book is much more compromising. Like,
Mhm.
I believe her, top is, down to her
Yeah.
waist, so
Yes.
she is topless,
Mhm.
making out, touching bodies in the garden, and her
Yes.
brother sees that, and she's like, "Oh my god, my brother just saw breasts," like, just it's a much more compromising position where, I thought that was interesting. I did one of the differences that I thought was really interesting in the book too is that, Anthony and Daphne are, BFFs in the book. Like,
Yeah.
it seems closer, and it seems like maybe he has less of the, like, weight maybe in this book compared to, like, the show. The show,
Mm,
he holds that weight, and I think there's a lot of reasons for it because, like, with the show, they had all 8 books, so they can draw from other things, and, like, I
mhm,
feel like the outside characters in, like, the book fall a little flat by comparison because they're really there to, like, help tell the lover's story. Whereas what I love about the series is, like, they really dig into all of these side characters, and I think it's part of why we all love the series so much, and they've expanded on it, and, like, obviously, they wouldn't have been able to do that without this as the base, and you can't necessarily do both. The Bridgerton series probably would have been a whole lot longer had they got into it at the same level as, like, maybe, like, a fantasy novel. They really, like, it's a lot flatter, so, like, I loved seeing, like, the friendship side because I don't think we see that as much because I think Antony is feeling that, like, weight of being the viscount, of doing all of that, and he lets Daphne choose. He's not
yeah,
pushing her into marriage. That
that
is
is true.
not a super high priority for him and I mean, it kind of happens in the series too, however, the difference is, like, he tries to push her into a marriage that's no good in the series. So it's just like it's a different vibe. But one thing too, we haven't talked about Violet a ton. She is like so pressuring in the book. Like,
Oh,
so much
yes.
more. Like, I feel like we see Violet angry a lot in the book and, like, so pressuring, and I thought that was like, I was like, "Oh, wow, I forgot about that part because 'cause I'm so used to, like, the actress who plays Violet in such a, like, maternal way, and she pressures and she prods, but, like, you see how it's
Yeah.
all love, and in the book, it's like, "Whoa." But
Well, but we also have to remember, I love that you actually said that because great comparison, but we also have to remember that, like, this book is written in a specific time where
yes.
women essentially had one role, and that was
Mhm.
to get married, make babies. They needed a dowry, like, we can't forget that, like, that
Yeah.
was what they needed to have. So she just wants to make sure her daughters are cared for because something else is that technically the only person who's gonna be honestly super protected would be Antony because he's the only one who gets the title. None of the other ones get the titles. All the other ones, it depends on their marriage and how Antony saves the money, decides to distribute the money, do anything else. So you're right, she is way more bearing, but like in this time, she had to be, especially with 8 children. Like, I need to make sure that like you're gonna be okay in life because
Yeah.
because
It's
then once Anthony starts having kids, like, that's even more money we have to distribute
Mhm.
and whatnot and all this. So, yeah.
Very true. We do also see the side of her at the ball too, where she's, like, chittering with her kids, and, like,
Yes.
I love the fact that she knows what she's doing, and I loved seeing that side of her in the book because I felt like that was the first side we saw, like, some of the quirky funny is, like, she chitters at her kids to make them go away and is managing them by, like, talking to them about stuff, and I was like, I think we see that too, but I loved that moment. I was like, "Oh my gosh."
Sounds like that's a
But
mom of 8 children. Yeah.
yes, but Lord only knows if Violet Bridgerton found out about Daphne in the garden with the Duke like that. She might support Anthony calling for a duel. I don't know.
Well, she does suspect later, but, at this point, she's just like, "My daughter's reputation," but yeah. Okay. Chapter 11 through 15. So it's later that night, and the duel's supposed to happen at, like, dawn. All I think is, like, of Hamilton and, like, they're doing the 10 duel commandments.
Yes.
Um, but anyways, the duel's gonna happen soon, and Colin is like rushing home from the party to look for Daphne. And turns out that Colin's friend saw Daphne and Simon in the garden alone, and possibly Lady Danbury. They know Lady Danbury's fine. She's not gonna say anything, like they trust her, but that's two possible people who could have seen him in the garden outside of Antony.
That they
They
know
do
of.
think
There's
yes.
gonna be others they don't know of.
Right. And they do think that Colin's friend won't say anything, but again, that's the point. If that's two people they know of, who are the people they don't know of? So before the duel can begin, Daphne goes and stops it and tells Simon everything that happens, and like now her reputation is ruined. So Simon does agree to marry her, but Simon does tell her he cannot have children. So like, is she sure? And she's like, Daphne is naive and does not understand what this means. And she's not naive by choice. She's naive because we're in our this certain time frame where women just don't know things. Um, and
Well,
apparently in the
the young
book,
women are
yeah,
not taught
nope.
until the night before their wedding, maybe,
I feel
if
like the
they're
night
lucky.
of because Daphne didn't even know.
Yeah.
Uh, so apparently whisperings did get to Violet that maybe something could have happened. She has no proof, but before she wants rumors to start, Violet actually gets the special marriage license to get them married in like 3 days. Simon will not take Daphne's dowry. He tells Anthony to put in an account for her and she can use it as she pleases. He's a duke. He doesn't need it. So it's now Daphne's wedding day, and Violet is struggling to have the talk, and I'm putting this in quotes, the sex talk. And Daphne learns that like the act, not even sex, it's just called like the act of like marriage is where children come from. So Daphne just thinks she'll never even participate in this act because Simon cannot have children. Like that is how her mother left the conversation with her, having that thought. So, we're killing it here as a society. So Simon and Daphne like stay at an inn on their wedding night because they're traveling back to the house in Clifton, Cliveden, something like that, and it's just too far to make in one day. While at the inn, Simon and Daphne talk, and Simon is just shocked to find out that like Daphne thinks that they can't even have sex. Like he wasn't gonna do anything at the inn to begin with. He was gonna wait till they got back to the house. She's like, no, she wants to partake in this, but she thinks he can't even have sex because he said he can't have children. And so, young women during these times, lovely, as sarcastic as I could possibly get. Simon shouldn't be shocked because he knows that women don't know this, but he promises that's not the case and he says he'll show her. So, thoughts before we get into the spicy scene, before the spicy scene.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, it's sad, I think, that, like, they put women in that situation without, like, any education. I think that's something that people, like, I think in order to consent, which is a big thing in this book specifically, you need to have knowledge of what you're consenting to. I think they handled it with, like, as much care for, like, this part as they could, but it's really difficult to see, like, a young woman, like, whose mother can't even tell her. Like, that broke my heart some, but it did have a small funny after effect of her being, like, so sensitive of, like, "Oh, you can't." Like, he's like, "Yeah, I can't. No, I can."
Uh, I also
That
think
part
though
is
it's
comical,
women.
but
No, it's very comical. I also think though it's women who are in high society because I find it very hard to
Mhm.
believe that like poor women, even at a young age, didn't know how babies are made, right? Like this is something that I do think that it was just like it was so improper, like women couldn't know, and it's like all of these moms were setting their children up for failure. Like, and not to like bring up the Netflix show, but like last season we had Philippa not even knowing that her husband needs to insert himself into her. Like, I mean, that was by far one of the funniest lines that we could have ever have gotten. But it's like when he inserts and she's like, inserts himself where? Like, she is married and doesn't understand. Like, that's so sad.
It is no, it's I'm laughing, but it's because that scene specifically was done so well by all
So
of the
well.
actors, like the director and like all of that. The setup was amazing, but it's so sad and like we think nowadays like I mean we can't relate. Like we've
No.
got phones and computers and sex ed and schools and like all of those things. And I'm
Uh,
like, is that why they didn't want women reading back then? Was it maybe in a
oh,
book? But it's like all the men know, but no one will talk it to
yes.
them, and I'm like, "Oh, man."
That's great. Okay. Chapters 15 through 20. So our lovers have a wonderful wedding night, and they discover that they do love each other, but they don't say it out loud. Like this is just like internal, like things that are just going on internally. But Simon does not come inside Daphne. And being a woman in high society, Daphne does not understand that that is how one comes to be with child. Not that you need you need come, to be.
Ejaculation.
Yes, like, she doesn't understand that. And so, when they head back home also, this is, like, a nice spicy chapter, and it's different because you and me also read fantasy, and it's a very different compared to fantasy. Like, this is written very nice and, they're not, like, fucking and this, they're, like, making love, and he pushed her up nicely, and, it's very nice, very sweet, very romantic, not at all like Violet and Xaden breaking a drawer or whatever, a cabinet.
Well, no knowledge about what is about to happen and is as virginal as they come.
Yes,
Violet was not a virgin. She
she knew.
knew.
That is
Xaden
true,
knew.
that is true.
The Duke knows. Daphne does not know.
That
So
is
I
very
think
true. That
anything
is
that
very
is
true.
not handled with care and that would just be like really not great
Yeah.
for that.
That is very true. So now they're, like, back at the Cleveland house, and there's a head housekeeper, and she explains, like, to Daphne because 'cause they're just, like, walking around and, talking about, like, newlywed stuff, and she explains that a man's seed and she explains, like, what a man's seed is to Daphne, but Daphne still doesn't understand exactly what that means yet. And the housekeeper also explains that like Simon grew up stuttering and like his upbringing with his father, he is not close to his family. His mom passed, his dad essentially abandoned him. And so when Daphne hears all this, she realizes that she really does love Simon. So she tells Simon she loves him first. And during one of these times that she says it, they're having sex. And now she's starting to remember what she said about the seed. And so when Simon pulls out and all of this liquid is on the bed, she's like, "Oh my god, that is his seed." So now she just feels betrayed because it's not that Simon can't have kids, is that he won't have kids. And so he lied to her when he had said that. And so while arguing, Simon says that he just will not be like his father, and Daphne, like, yells at him and saying he knows that he was cruel and that he had a stutter, but, like, you're letting him win. And he just doesn't see it that way. So that night, Daphne moves out of Simon's bed into the Duchess's bedroom because at this time, people did sleep separate if, they weren't like trying to conceive or anything. And Simon is not having it. And so he demands that Daphne move back into his bedroom. And Daphne says, and I'm quoting this because I thought this line was fantastic. "You've chosen to withhold something from me, while I have chosen to withhold something from you, me." And it's like, yes, girl, do that because yes, I approve of that so much. So now Daphne is again saying, like, you are not your own man. Your father is still ruling you from the grave. So they sleep in different bedrooms. It's like the next night, Simon gets drunk. And then when, he realizes he like loves Daphne and he's like, I'm going to try to win her back. So he heads back to her room and he's drunk and he passes out in her bed essentially. And Daphne takes advantage of him. I have no other way to say that, but she takes advantage of him. He's half passed out, he's drunk. She gets on top of him because sometimes when you're drunk, you get hard or you get turned on. He's getting hard. And so she gets on top of him and he comes inside her. When Simon like actually realizes what's going on and that she did this on purpose, he leaves for another estate and just pretty much says like, I'm sure you'll let me know, like, if you were successful. And so Daphne has no choice but to go back home, but she goes to the Hastings house. She doesn't go to the Bridgerton's house. And rumors start since Daphne is back without her husband. And so Violet and Colin visit her first. And she keeps it, she doesn't like say that they're having issues or anything. She just, she keeps their marriage problems within their marriage problems. And then Anthony visits next, demanding to know like where Simon is because like wants to beat him up because the only way we can communicate is with our fists or guns. Daphne tells Anthony that she will tell him where Simon is, but he has to deliver this letter, but he has to promise not to read it. and the letter just says that she is with child. And so after Simon finishes reading the letter, he packs up and heads immediately back to London to his wife. Thoughts? I gave you a lot because there was a lot in there, but that
Yeah.
without the most important chapters or the most important.
Yeah. I think, like, I love so many parts of this book, but we definitely got to the part that, like, I hate the most. I think the betrayal and taking Daphne's choice away from her of, like, "I can't" versus "I won't" is, like, a huge thing. I think if they had gotten into that, would they have gotten married? I don't know. That would be an interesting, like, alternative storyline. But when it comes to when he comes back drunk, I think we get back to the level of consent, and, I mean, there's a sexual assault in this book as far as, like, I'm concerned. I think nothing about that was okay. I empathize from the perspective of her feeling like her choice was taken away with, like, the marriage and everything like that, but also 2 wrongs don't make a right, and I do think that thing, like, is just, like, it's like the dark cloud over this book for me because I don't wanna skirt around it because it's not, like, something we
No.
want in here. Like, it's
Yeah,
just, like,
no, let's
really,
talk
really,
about it.
really, really messed up, and we so often, like, hear about that, like, about, like, women being sexually assaulted, and people don't always believe men's stories, and I was like, "We've got a man's story, like, right here." Whether or not they're married, like, he didn't consent to that, and so that's kind of, like, the really, like that's the part they don't really get into it, they don't really talk about it, they, like, have a fight, but I'm like, that's the dark cloud of this book for me in this series is I'm like, "No." Um, outside of that, with, like, everything, it is different, but I think, like, kind of separating after something like that is probably, like, the healthiest thing you can do for yourself.
Mhm.
Take some space.
Yeah. No, that's why I said she should have took advantage of him because, if the situation was reversed, we all would be saying, "That was rape, that was this," and, like, let's
It
be honest,
was.
that is what she did, we're like you said, 2 wrongs don't make a right, that is what Daphne did. Not defending her, but I also think this goes with that being naive type of situation because had she known, like your point, like she would have understood early on what this was and what that, this is how babies are made. But also, this is just now to Simon, and we are in different times, like we're in 2026 and this is real life, this is a book and read the Regency era. There's pre-cum. And a baby can still be made with pre-cum. So you pulling out does not mean she's never gonna not get pregnant. You pulling out does not mean you don't have little Simons running around from other women. Like, let's just talk about that because that's not what that means.
No, there's
Uh,
there's not a lot of information on proper sex ed in this day and age in this book and
yeah.
world.
Yeah. But anyways, back to Simon. And we'll talk about this later too in the Netflix show. I actually do appreciate though that while the Netflix show kept it close that like Daphne does take advantage of Simon, I actually appreciate though that they didn't make him drunk and like passed out. Like he was awake. He essentially he didn't consent to like her doing it that way, but like they both were participating in, so I appreciate that a little bit more because that probably is how it might happen more often or not. Like, and we may not see that as like taking advantage either or being assaulted or anything, right? Like, they're like, oh,
Mhm.
they started doing it. They were both consenting adults. Like, they were both sober. They were both this. But it's like, no, like, he clearly did not want that at the end and she did not get off him.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that, like, they still kept part of this part in the show with this, and while it's dark, it is, like, the plot of the book, and, like, we need it.
It is different in this series. I think in this series, like, for her, that was, like, the experiment to test her theory. Like, I don't think she knew that that would be wrong. That's when you get to that level of, like, naivete, like, with stuff like, is it wrong if you know if you
Mhm.
don't know it's wrong? like, I feel
That's
like the
true.
ethical question
Mhm.
at hand, but that was definitely like in the Netflix series, it was different. They didn't have that same fight before. And it was like that, like, then they had a fight after, and then she knew for certain that he had actually, like, really, really lied and betrayed to her.
That's a good point. I like that. All right. Okay. Wow, we're almost done now. So what we're almost done with the
Almost.
book. Okay, because there's only chapter 20 and 21, and then we get the 2 epilogues. So chapter
Mhm.
20, of course, Lady Whistledown reports that the love match of like the season seems to be estranged because at this point it's been almost like 2 months and Simon is not with Daphne. Daphne is still by herself at the Hastings house. So it takes about 2 days for Simon to make it to Daphne after he gets like the letter. But when he does, he first goes to Bridgerton house and not to his home, aka their home. And I think that's also just telling that like while he loves her, he assumed that she would go home to her family's house, not considering that her home is now their home, right? So I do like that like he messed that up and like she's been at home the whole time.
Mhm.
So when he finally makes it to the Hastings house, he finds out that Daphne's out riding a horse and gets mad because she should not be riding a horse in her condition. And so now we like go to Daphne and she's like riding the horse and she's riding it fast in like the area that she shouldn't be running it or riding a horse in. She doesn't have like her groom person. There's no one else around with her. And she's just trying to forget the pain right now and like her sadness and she just like wants like escape the world. And so she is running or not running. She's riding. She realizes someone is following her. It's Simon, but she doesn't know it's Simon. And so she runs like even faster trying to get rid of this person who is following her. And then she like hits a branch and she falls off the horse. Simon catches up to her and make sure that she's okay because she got hit by a horse and fell off, a branch. I mean, it fell off the horse. She's overall fine. And like Simon is just very concerned about her. Like, where does it hurt? Does this, like, tell me? And then you respond, she's fine. And then he gives her a little piece of his mind and is like, "Why were you out running in your condition?" Like, gives her an earful, and she responds like, "Why do you care? You didn't even want this baby." And he was like, "No, I didn't want it, but now that it's here, I don't want you to kill it." So, slowly seeing that like he does want a child. Like, it's he's not his father's he could be more than his father's legacy. And then Daphne explains that she was never pregnant. Her cycle was just late. So I'm sure from stress, they don't get taught that, but that makes your cycle get late sometimes. And then they just have like a heart to heart while they're like out here with their horses and they talk about like his fear of like being a dad and like how he wasn't, because of his dad and how he like wasn't raised correctly. And they head home to get it on because it's been 2 months and now they're horny. But they head home only to find Daphne's older brother is waiting for her. And Simon is done with this. He's like, "She's my wife, get the fuck out of my house." But, brothers being brothers, they gotta be the biggest cock blockers. So they're like, don't understand what's going on. And then Simon finally says, "I love you," but like Daphne thinks he's saying it because her brothers are here. And he explains that, like, no, he truly loves her. He doesn't care who hears it. If her brothers are here, that like he loves her. Violet comes in and gets those boys out of there. And then our newlyweds do what they haven't done in 2 months and they make love. And they do it and he does not pull out. He stays in. So then months later, Daphne reveals that she has these letters that Simon's father had written him. And it says it's up to you if you decide to open these. And so he decides that he'll open them when he's ready. And like the book ends, he never opens them. All he ever needed was his wife. End of book. And then we get two
And she
epilogues.
never read them.
Yeah,
She never
she
read
never
them
read
in
them
the book,
either. She left them.
and she got them from the Duke's, like, old Duke, like,
Yeah,
Simon's father, Duke's friend that they met at, like, that first ball too, and he's like, "Oh, I know you're the right person to give these to. I'm sure you'll get them to him when the time is right." I
love
was
it.
like, "Oh my gosh." The book is so much more streamlined
Mm,
for
it
their
is.
story.
I love it. All right, first epilogue. It's hilarious because first epilogue is like a page and a half. Second epilogue is like 15 pages. Like,
Yep.
okay, so, first epilogue starts off with Lady Whistledown reporting that Simon and Daphne have given birth to their fourth child. However, it is finally a boy, and they have followed the tradition of naming their kids like in alphabetical order. So we have Amelia, Belinda, Carolyn or Caroline, and then this last child is David. And the epilogue ends with Simon holding his son and pretty much saying that he will love him no matter what, and he's gonna give him everything he's got. And it's like, oh, like, you know, the trauma ended with them, right? It wasn't gonna continue past them. Like it ended with him. He's gonna make sure his kids were gonna be loved and, have the life, the family that he never got to have. So I loved it. Second epilogue. Daphne is now 41 years old and she is pregnant again. And it is 17 years since she had her last child. So Daphne is not excited about this. While she loves her children, she says she did not love being pregnant. She got really bad morning sickness. She like got fat. Like she just hated being pregnant. And it's been years and she thought she was done. She actually thought she was going through the change, but she wasn't. And so now, like, she doesn't know how to tell Simon because Simon is away for a few days, like on business or whatnot, like at another of their estates. Daphne decides that she doesn't want to tell anyone, but people are starting to figure it out because she's like puking all the time. Her morning sickness is really bad. Colin and Penelope visit with their children. Agatha is about to turn 9. Thomas is about to turn 7. Jane, 6. And little Georgie is going to be 3. And George is not speaking. And so they're there for Simon's advice. So when Simon returns, he finds, Daphne puking and realizes that they are expecting another child. And while he was not expecting this, he is overall happy to be a dad again. He goes and talks to Colin and just tells Colin that he just needs to love his son and like his son will talk like when he's ready. Like that's all he needs. And so Simon finally, goes through his father's letters because they don't know if there's something in there that could potentially help George. And when they go through his letter, it's more like Daphne goes through the letters, but like she's like telling him what's in there. And
She was like,
yeah,
would you like me to read it and tell you?" And he was like, "Yes, that
yeah.
sounds great."
And so pretty much all the letters contained are like information about like the states, like issues that may be within their duke like land, like the people
The
who are
fence
there.
on the east side is
Yes,
broken and getting a repair.
yeah.
The fall
Like
crop was subpar.
like things the father thought he should know. And then the second epilogue ends with like just Daphne and Simon just happy that they have each other and that the family that they created because that's all they truly needed. Any thoughts and whatnot on the two epilogues?
Yeah, I mean, I like, specifically think of, like, the second one and, like, it speaks to, like, the man that Simon is and how and who he's become through facing his demons is the only thing that made him open the letters was trying to help someone else and one of the members of the family, and I think that's just so true on, like, how much he was, like, enveloped into the Bridgerton clan.
Mhm.
Because, like, there are 2 differences in the book, like, you have, like, Daphne who comes from this, like, wonderfully boisterous, very close family raised by parents that were a love match, versus Simon, who was raised by parents who were not a love match, was the only child, was ostracized, went through a nightmare of a childhood, so it's, like, just such a different lived experience, and, like, the fact that he wanted to, like, face that again just to help, like, I don't know, I thought that was a really sweet way to kind of, like, wrap up the book.
Yeah, I love it. I'm gonna say this, people are gonna think like I'm defending the dad. I wanna be very clear, I'm not defending the father. The dad was a jerk. I just want to say that. But I think though, in th this is different than the show. In the book, it says that, like, when Simon got older, the dad did try to reach out multiple times,
Yeah.
try to establish a relationship with Simon, and Simon said no, which Simon had every right to say no. Like, you can't just decide to be a dad because I've proven you wrong. Like, no. But I do think these letters, though, where sometimes while you don't have to accept someone's love, you also have to understand how they love. and I do think this was his dad's way, these letters, because 'cause they're stupid, but they're filled with all the Duke stuff, and the Duke stuff was so important to him, making sure that his son knew this shit was broken, the crop didn't work, so, like, he, you know, could, like, not walk into, like, a mess, like, like, this is how these are the issues that the land is having, like, this was his way of trying to take care of his son. Again, not defending the dad, but I do think this was the dad's last attempt at trying to show Simon that he was sorry, for,
Yeah.
like, what it was, and he didn't need the and the point is Simon didn't need the letters. He completely made the land himself. He was a great duke, he didn't need it, but I do think it's, like, his dad's last ditch effort to, like, try to form a
Yeah.
relationship with his son.
I mean, like, rejecting a child like he did is, like, so wrong, and I think the only reason he actually came back into the picture was because Simon was doing so well
Mhm.
despite the childhood he had, and that's why he's like, "Oh, I want my son, I want this, I want all the things that I wanted," and I think it was more like egocentric than, like, because he wanted to do better. It
Yeah.
I could see how the letters could be, like, a way of, like, him showing love. I don't necessarily believe it was love for his son, I think it was love for the dukedom, and I think he finally saw, like, his son as, like, a worthy duke once he saw him getting older, like, in the novel, but I also, like, kind of, like, applaud Simon for not like, for being able to move on with his life and not having
Mhm.
that ghost hanging over him because it should have never happened to him. He's allowed to say no to someone like that even after the grave with the letters. I think that's a really healthy boundary to have.
Agree. I love it.
I would feel a little differently if he was reaching out being like, "I wanna try to I messed up," and, like, taking ownership, but they did not have therapy back in those days, I don't think, and, like, especially not men.
Yeah. Especially now.
Before we move on, I also do wanna talk about how they refer to the Duke's eyes as blue in the
Oh,
book, and I think the Duke looks very different in the book probably than the Netflix series.
I think a lot of characters look a lot different in the Netflix series than the book. I love that, and that's actually one of the topics or it's not my sassy topic, but, like, when we get into the show, which we could talk
Mhm,
about it now because I love that we cast a show with such diversity. First of all, I absolutely love Shonda, so I don't think she's made something that I don't like. I'm gonna be honest. I know people gave a lot of shit for I forgot what was the Britney Spears one? Crossroads. I thought that was a great coming of age show. I think people expected more than what it was, but, like, for what it was giving me, loved it. I Grey's Anatomy does need to come off the air. It's done. Everyone has fucked each other. People have died. We're bringing new people in. They've all fucked each other. Like, it's done. It truly does need to end. But I have devoted way too much time and energy to quit now. So I will watch it until the series finale. But it
yeah.
does need to end. You know what? I didn't watch Private Practice. I will give you that. I didn't watch like the prequel or whatever, or the spinoff
Okay.
to that. But I watched Station 19, How to Get Away with Murder, Scandal.
Scandal.
Yes, there was also this other show, and honestly, it needed to be on Netflix, and it would have done amazing. I forgot what it was called. I have to Google it. But Shonda Rhimes did, it was like Romeo and Juliet, but it was like Rosalie's story kind of, and it was set in that time very much like Bridgerton, but it was cast very modern. So, like, everyone was all different ethnicities. It was on, like, ABC, and honestly, like, these type of shows, you need to be able to give us, like, 2 or 3 because the first episode is, like, setting everything up, and it just, like, didn't do well, so they, like, took it off, the air. It did well, but if it was on Netflix and they gave us, like, 4 episodes at a time, I promise it would
Mhm.
have done well. It was just on network TV, so it just didn't do well, but I absolutely love everything Shonda makes, so I support her. My one issue with this though, and I missed it and I have rewatched this season multiple times. I did not catch this until the Charlotte season. So I was like, "Oh, she casts us not based on race. She doesn't bring race to the table." I love that. But there is an episode in here when Lady Danbury is talking with Simon and she pretty much says
Mhm.
like, "It wasn't like this for us we were given this opportunity, and I missed that. Like, I that
Yeah.
went over
I
my
was like,
head.
"No, they do bring race into it. They
Yeah,
do.
that went over my
Not
head multiple
initially."
times, and maybe I was
Yeah.
just being naive because I was like, "Oh, I love that this show we don't really acknowledge race." Like, love it. And
Mhm.
then we get to
Yeah.
Queen Charlotte's, uh, season, and, like, the first episode is all about race, and I was like, "Wait, I love that we didn't acknowledge race. Why the fuck are we acknowledging race?" And then I go back and I'm like, "Oh, we need to acknowledge race." So now I'm not defending the dad again. I'm not defending the dad again, but now that we brought race into it, because this whole time I was like, there's no race. When he's defending his dukedom and he's like, he didn't want it to go away. He says, we worked too hard for this. Like, we have to bring the race element into this. I'm not saying it's not okay, because it's not okay. Like, you should never treat your son that way. But in his head, his family fought for this, wasn't given it to him, and it was going to be taken away from his family. And this was something that, like, as Black people, that was not something that they could do. And so, again, not saying he was right in that, but, like, now in the TV show, reasoning is significantly different than, like, in the book. Again, because I was like, "Oh, it's not about race." And it's like, "Oh, no, it is totally about race."
Yeah.
I wish she hadn't brought race into it. I really wish she had just kept it as is. But again, I'll watch anything she puts in front of me. So, like, nothing. I just wish
Yeah.
that. But yeah. But to your point, Simon in the book is very different than Simon in real life.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love, like, anything Shonda Rhimes touches, and, like, I think, like, the casting for the Netflix series was just, like, I think the Duke was a huge upgrade.
Mhm. Yes.
I think we've seen enough men with blue eyes on the screen at this point. Like, I love that they, like, took risks and changed the approach instead of trying to be so historical for the sake of history in a story where it's not like it's not really important. Like, the whole point of this series, it's a romance. It's a romance. You can, like, be really time appropriate. You can do all of that. There's aspects of it, but I love how they broke a lot of rules in the approach. I think we see that with, like, diversity in casting. I think we also see that with, like, what I think it's just such a beautiful show, and I love, like, so many elements of it because they
Oh,
gave so
we're
much
seeing it
creativity.
fall in real time, guys.
I was just about to mention the set and the
It's like it's
costumes,
about to
and
fall in real time.
it's a perfect segue. But, like, the way that they were like, "We're gonna be period honor the period, but spin it a little creativity," I'm obsessed with. Like, the costumes are not period appropriate, but they're close, like, the silhouettes are. However, then they, like, kind of play with, like, the fabrics, and some of the fabrics are very close, but then you also see it in, like, the interiors of the set too, and how they, like, kind of play it, like, especially at the balls. I don't know when they invented a light bulb, but, like, we see that in, like, the
Right.
first episode of, like, all the light bulbs. It's so grandiose and, like, whimsy, takes you into this world, like, so well, and, like, that's, like, I I feel like I love the series for this book a little more than the book itself,
Same,
which is
same.
usually not the
Mhm.
case.
Same.
Usually, I'm always book over that, but I just think that I think they had such a strong story, and I think they brought in so much wonderful creative talent that, like, they made choices to, like, add diversity. They made choices to move away from the time period enough, but
Mhm.
to, like, also build this beautiful world where you have, like, Vitamin String Quartet and pop music
Yes,
on
I
screen,
was
like
literally gonna say that. I was like, how we bring modern through the music, but it's
mhm,
literally classical. Love it. Go ahead, continue, but I agree.
yeah, and the casting too. I am so obsessed with the fact that they brought in cast that were not necessarily well known on, like, that level of,
Mhm.
like, I wanna say, like, obsession of, like, it's not like, "Oh, that's, like, Scarlett Johansson," or, "Oh, that's that
Yes,
person who's having their 15 minutes," and, like, they cast people they cast actors that, like, fit. so well
Yeah, because the
without
only
needing
people
a
yeah, you're right.
name.
Mhm.
Mhm. And
'Cause
I
the only
love that.
one would have been, I think, Queen Charlotte, because I knew who Queen Charlotte was before Bridgerton and Lady
Yeah.
Danbury, but that's it. Everyone else, I don't yeah, I didn't recognize at least season 1. Season 2, they start to bring in other faces from, like, other I watch a lot of, like, England shows or, like,
Yeah.
we're oh, we're falling down more, guys. It's all gonna come down. It is literally hanging on by a thread, so we're here.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I absolutely love that. I love how they did the show. But there was a lot of key differences too, because like you said earlier, we have to oh, it's I don't know how much they're really just gonna fall down at this point. But we need those side characters because in the book, there's not really side characters, but they are very important to the overall plot of moving forward and all of this. So like we fall in love with Eloise right away because she doesn't want to conform to society. Benedict also doesn't want to conform to it guys, that's all gonna come down at some in the next
Yes.
5-10 minutes. If you're hearing, my lovely flowers, my hyacinths have fallen down, which is why I said I was not doing this again for the next episode. This was a one and done type of situation. You're gonna have to fall in to see it, and I'm gonna keep it. I'm not gonna hide it. Like, it's very real time, guys. Now, also, I think it's because my chair's taking it, but yeah, it's all
we're,
done
we're
now.
on the last
But yeah,
strands.
but, like, I forgot because I rewatched this, Francesca's recast, like, to be fair, Francesca was away at school for, like, the first, like, 2-ish books, so, like, recasting her was very appropriate. She's gonna start, I'm sure, to have some sexy scenes, and so you just can't have a younger actress in that, you need an older actress. I'm sure that's the same reason why Gregory and Hyacinth's book probably will for sure be the last 2 because we need the actors to be of age to participate in certain scenes that we all know and love. The one thing though, and because we're gonna talk about Antony's story later, but in season 1, we get a lot of sexy time with Daphne and Simon, and I absolutely love it, but then we stop getting all the sexy time in the rest of the seasons. It's like, "No, you've already set the stage, you can't unset the stage here." Stage has been set, and we don't get this, so that is one of my pet peeves, because there's also a lot of ways to show that they're doing it, and they don't actually have to be, like, naked. Like, we did see Simon's
You
ass
don't.
a lot, like, the
y-
actor's ass a lot. Daphne did show her boobs a lot. We can have them doing it and not show any of that. All we want is the illusion. We don't that's beyond, like, that's what we need. We don't need to see actual body parts. We just want that. So I'm hoping Benedict's story, the one that's about to come out, we get a little bit more, but we'll see. We'll see.
So what I'm hearing is you want another 8-minute montage of
Yep.
love making
Yes.
across many places with different
Absolutely.
costumes, different parts to
Absolutely.
another Vitamin String Quartet cover of another Taylor Swift song.
The fact that Enchanted is gonna be in this season, in season
Yes.
4, that is literally one of my favorite Taylor Swift songs. I am here for it so much, you have no idea. I cannot wait for episode 4. Cannot wait. No, but and when we talk about, like, Anthony's book, next episode, they changed a lot. I understand why they had to change a lot because, like, it would be very similar to this book if we're being honest, but,
They
um
ripped some stuff like the without, like, spoiling really much, like,
eh,
the horse part of
yeah,
Daphne's
it's
book
different.
kind of
Yes.
gets taken. There's some, like, playing with
Yeah.
some of the things, which is why I say, like, I love, like, they kind of chopped up this book so much and brought different scenes at different
Mhm.
points or inspiration for different aspects, and, like, you do see that even with some of the other books, and I think part of the reason it's so different too is you're introducing all of these other side characters in the Netflix series.
Which we
And so
need.
they are showing some foreshadowing if you've read the books where you're like, oh, yes. And then, like, you see those, like,
Oh, you can give all spoilers. I announced very early on that this will contain spoilers. This will contain spoilers for
Oh.
every single thing, so if you wanna say something, feel free to
Oh,
go ahead
that's
and
fair.
say something.
I was like, I'll just keep it like,
Nope,
but
go ahead.
they
This contains
do draw a lot of
spoilers.
inspo, which is what I think made it like so successful is like I feel like when you take a series from a book, like you can do so much with it and honoring the book while
Mhm.
also like having some creative freedom,
Yeah,
I think does a lot. But
yeah.
no, I'm so excited. I don't think this is gonna happen, but I am rooting for it as we're counting down the days for the season 4 coming out. I
Which
would love to
technically is
hear
tonight.
I would love to hear "Party for You"
Oh,
in, like, a Vitamin String Quartet, like, with
I
that
is it?
story. I feel like it would be like the "Party for You."
Yeah.
Like, I
No,
feel
I
like that
think
would
that
be,
is
like,
a
a
song.
really cool
Yeah.
cover for that story
Oh,
at some point. Maybe not, but I'm hoping.
yeah.
We
No,
didn't
I love
expect
it because
Pitbull.
something else that's different was in the book, it was, like, Colin's friend who saw Daphne, but here it was
Mhm.
Cressida.
Cressida Cowper.
And Cressida does not have she comes in a little bit more later on, I think in Penelope's book, and I think
Yeah.
in Colin Penelope's book, she's, her character is brought out more, but we in the show, it was Cressida who did it because she was gonna blackmail her essentially so that she could get the prince, but the prince doesn't marry her anyways. But then it's interesting because now, you know, in Colin and Penelope's season, Cressida is like married off, but we know that in the books her dude dies. So I feel like she's gonna come back with vengeance.
Yeah, there's it like, I feel like if you haven't read all of the books yet,
Yeah.
read all of the books because
Yes.
there are, like, such well done little,
Yes.
like, what's the word for it? Like,
Easter eggs? I don't know.
little Easter
Or
eggs, yeah.
nuggets.
There's
Yes.
so many Easter eggs, like,
Yes.
the way that I screamed at the end of, season 3 when they introduced, like, Michaela, like, I was like and, like, no one knew why, or,
Well,
for
you already know
example
I do have a slight issue with Michaela. And
I
I
know.
will talk about it here because I'm also gonna talk about it with my
Yeah.
other co-host. I wanna be very clear before people come at me. One, as I said earlier, I trust absolutely everything Shonda does. I have no doubt that this is absolutely gonna be amazing. My one issue with the Michaela storyline is um, Daphne and Francesca's books are the only 2 books where they really wanted to be mothers, where they really wanted children, and Francesca's book really is about fertility issues and, like, certain things, like, she only has 1 kid ultimately at the end of the day, and I'm here for this storyline. Like, I wanna be clear, I am a little sad that we're taking away the infertility issue because
But you
back
don't know that.
okay, what do we w and it's like 1817. Yeah, we have in vitro, and
Well, but we also haven't seen what they've done with it yet.
that's true. Okay, I'll give it to you. Like I said, I trust
It's
Shonda. I absolutely trust
for
Shonda, like I said, but that's my one thing.
yeah.
My one thing was that, like, "Oh, I wish they had kept it," but I'm sure she'll make it amazing. But again, I don't mind that, like, Michaela it's now Michaela. Like I said, I do wish we still at least talk about the infertility part, but honestly, we could've made Eloise, we could've made Philippia, I don't know, I'm making up names. We could've
Yeah.
made Steven. Like, I personally, like, do not care, like, that we're bringing same sex into it. It was more that, like, the book just outlined a very specific, um topic that I think, especially in our time, a lot of women are dealing with, and because we're choosing
Yeah.
our kids older too and things like that.
But we don't know they might handle it differently, like, we just don't know for people that are, like, listening or watching, like, when it comes to diversity and casting, like, the reason I gasped out loud is the role of Michaela, that cousin, was traditionally Michael's, so was traditionally a man, and then they cast a woman as the cousin, which is ultimately a love interest for Francesca down the line, as we very clearly see in the end of season 3, when she's asking about love and she's talking about it, and I think it's Violet that says, like, she forgot her name.
Yeah,
Like, that's when
and that
she
was
was
the
so
first
flustered she
thing.
forgot her name, and we see Francesca, and she has this, like, beautiful love story with, um, the man that she marries, and, like, there's this peace
Early,
and
why
this
can I
calm and
John?
everything.
Yeah,
John, that sounds
that's her name.
familiar. Like, you see this peace and this calm, and it's beautiful, and I love that story so much, and then you meet the cousin at the end, which if you've read the books, then you know, and the cousin is now a woman, and I was, like, screaming for it. I'm here for it. I'm so excited for it. Because I think we all thought that if they were gonna play around with gender and, like, sexuality and that nature, and there being different choices, as there probably would be if you have 8 children, like, they're not necessarily gonna all be straight.
Yeah.
Um, like, we all kinda thought, like, "Oh, Benedict," because they
Or
explore
Eloise,
that.
I mean, I know
They
we
explore
meet
that,
her person.
or even Eloise, like, you could
Yeah,
definitely see, but I love the fact that it was so unexpected, and it wasn't what we anticipated, so I'm really excited to see how they tell that story because I feel certain that they're not going to just get rid of
mhm,
fertility struggles. I
yeah.
don't especially with how people feel about that, I just think it's gonna look different.
And like I said, I watch, like, anything Shauna puts in front of me, so, like, I trust her, like I said, I was shocked just because, like, I thought we really were gonna keep that timeline just because, like, there are literally other children that you could have changed it with and still kept the overall plot, but I trust Shonda. I absolutely know whenever we get Francesca season, whether it's next season or the following one, I'm gonna love it, and I'm 1000% here for it.
Do
One
you
other
do you wanna
thing.
hear my theory real quick
Yeah, go ahead,
on
of course.
why think this is just, like, from, like, I think from a financial aspect and everything, I think that they did not approve a queer storyline until they knew that there was gonna be money in it.
Oh,
Just
that
from the business side
no,
of it.
no,
From the
you're
business
probably
side, it's
right.
very common for, like, if, for example, they came in, they're like, "We wanna cast diverse actors." People in the higher up offices were probably like, "No," or, like, gave pushback, and they were like, "Why?" And, like, so you have to, like, prove certain things to certain corporate higher ups to get, like, the funding and everything, because often they don't always fully trust artists and just say, "Do whatever you want," and, like, it's a whole thing, and that's the dream as an artist to just have that and be able to work with other creatives, and I think they did so much in this show, but I think it was like, I think you can see in season 1, you see a moment of it, and you have that, like, with the side character with, I'm forgetting his name, is it like Crowley or something? The artists
Oh,
and everything,
yeah,
and they
I
are
know who you're talking
artists, so
about,
you're
yeah.
like, "Okay," but you see a moment, but they don't get into it, and then you start to see more, but it wasn't right away, and I think that might have been why they also switched the order of the show, and why Penelope and Colin were in season 3, because it should have been Benedict, but I think they wanted to maybe safely explore, so I think they were waiting until they had enough buy-in
That's a
for,
good
like, the
point, yeah.
financial side for that to be able to tell that story. That's my guess. They still could have chosen someone else. I'm so excited to hear, like, the interviews come out ultimately on the
Yeah,
choices and the reasons why once they show it, because I think they're gonna keep a lot of it really close to the chest. But we did see that with, like, I mean, like, heated rivalry on HBO. Like, it's through Crave, it's through a Canadian filmmaker. Like, they had a shoestring budget, they had 2
and
cameras,
it's,
and
like,
they
the
did that whole
hottest
thing.
show right
Then
now.
HBO bought it up and they put it everywhere, but they did actually say the director of that show said that they were getting picked up by a much bigger US company, but they were like, "No kissing until episode 5."
Oh, no, we needed
And
that
so they
kiss in, like,
walked.
10
Yeah,
minutes
they
in. I don't even know what minute in.
Mhm.
There's definitely
And he
episode
was like
1, like,
Yeah,
10
and he was like,
minutes.
"That's not the story. That's not the story."
Yeah,
And so he walked, and so I think that's, like, a really good, reminder, like, for people that don't know kind of how the entertainment industry works. They're in it to make money at the end of the day. That's why the show must go on as a thing. But I felt like that was helpful to,
yeah. No, I
it's
love that
interesting.
you said that. I love it. You're probably right, and like I said, I don't want anyone, not trying to offend anyone, like, truly, I'm here for the Michaela plot line. I do hope that they still address infertility. Like that was the whole point was like there are literally so many other Bridgerton kids that we could have swapped it with.
Mhm.
And because none of them wanted kids to that extent and still like I think kept the overall theme of the show. But again, I trust Shonda. She
I
yet
I
to
wouldn't be
disappoint
surprised
me.
if they're not changing certain things more and if it becomes
Yeah.
someone else's story because, like, I don't feel like we've gotten that super want for kids from
Mhm.
her in the
Not
show
yeah, we haven't.
as much.
But to be fair, Francesca in the books too, she was, like, away at school a lot, so, like, we also
Yeah.
just got Francesca a lot, like, this last season, so, like, to be fair, we probably are gonna get a ton of her this season because she's actually married, so, in the next, like, 4 hours when it airs,
Uh,
we're gonna be able to see. I wanted to bring up some things really quickly before we go into our sassy topic, so something that's interesting is, again, because they do have to switch the show a lot before because you can't follow the book, but Lord Featherington is alive right away. He's killed at the end. He does not die. They um the dudes that he gambled with and they realized that he like cheated them. Literally the end, I didn't realize until I rewatched it like with an eye. They like put poison on top of the table and I'm like, "Oh, they made him
mhm,
drink the poison." Got it. He dies. So this is how we're introduced that like the Featheringtons have money problems, which I also think is interesting because Daphne and Simon at the end of the book have a daughter first, and at the end of the show, they have a son first. Same thing with Colin and um
Penelope.
Penelope. Their book just said they had a daughter first and their son was second, but like in the movie or in the show, she's out there with the first because her sisters have girls, she's out there with the son. So we've completely changed the like order of like the gender of the children. So I don't think that's going to be super important because like I do think Bridgerton will end like after Gregory's story if they choose it because technically Hyacinth's story comes out before Gregory's, but Gregory is technically older than Hyacinth, so we'll see how they do this. But I was just interested that they changed the kids at genders very early on, and it's not really gonna matter. Like we're not following the children.
Mhm,
So but I thought that was just kind of little interesting. And then the next thing is in the show, Anthony has his opera singer Sienna and absolutely loves her and it
mhm.
is shown in so many ways that he loves her. He was almost willing to give up society for her. Like, there's so much. And when we talk next week on Kate's love story with him, I have so many issues with that. One being, I don't ever feel like I got the same love that he felt for Sienna with Kate.
Mm,
In the show. In the book, I get that because a lot of things happen very early on, but I don't doubt that Kate and Anthony do not love each other. Like he does love her at the end. He's proven that. We get the enemies to lover story line. We get that. But I think with the TV show, like his love for Sienna was so great. I just like felt it from the beginning and like I just did not get that ever with Kate. But I think it's also because they switched the storyline so much for that in the show, so
well, I mean,
interesting.
think about your first love versus, like, who you're with now. Like,
That's true.
it looks
Different.
different. Eh, I mean, I like him a lot more with Kate than Sienna,
Oh,
period. Because
1000%
Kate
because
can
he's
hold her own
acting like a
against him
man
and
with Kate. He
challenges
was not
him.
yeah. He was not acting like a man at all with Sienna, but I
Yeah,
just
and
think it was just different, yeah.
his relationship with Sienna, I feel like it was so, like there was so much passion, but I also feel like it wasn't, like, a relationship of equals either.
It
I
wasn't,
feel
you're
like he held all of that power and then abused it so many times, and because she's a woman of these times, like, she has to, like, have a man in her life, and, like, I believe he's, like, paying for stuff for her and all of those
right.
things, like, but he couldn't keep doing that, and,
Mhm.
like yeah, no,
Sure.
but that's sad.
Okay.
And we've also got the different story with, what's his face, Nigel in the
Oh,
series. It gets that, like, oh,
did he marry
that
one of the Featherington sisters or no? In the books?
um, I
Or
don't
am I making this up?
remember. It's so different. He's so
Yeah.
much uglier in, like not no shade to the actor. The character is so much uglier as, like, a human in the series. It really creates, like, an antagonist kind of situation and everything.
Oh, yes, okay. We will talk more next time about the show, but we're gonna end with our sassy topic. Okay, so how does the Regency, like, society define a woman's success? How does Daphne conform or resist to these expectations, especially being the eldest daughter? Not to bring Taylor Swift into this, but, being the eldest daughter and all.
Mm. Okay, I would say so society's expectations. I mean, I feel like at that point your job is to have babies, but specifically to make heirs. And
Mhm,
like a couple of daughters are okay, but it's like their role is to marry up as much as they can and
mhm.
then to provide heirs. And then I think from there it's really about like kind of keeping the family in line, doing like the social things and all of those, but it looks very different compared to nowadays.
Yeah, I have to agree, but I think they do a great job because in the show and in the movie, they talk about how she's like, "No, I need children. I need to do this." In the show, she's always telling Eloise, like, "It's me who's gonna set the expectations for all of you guys later. Like, there's all this pressure put on me." And then when she realizes that, like, she can be married and, like, not have kids, not that she can't or whatever, but, like, won't. She was happy. There's literally a whole scene where her and Simon, they're, like, at the fair or whatever, coming back from, like, the fair, and she's like, "I could be happy this way. I know I'm gonna have a ton of nieces and nephews, and, like, that is all I need in life as long as I have you by my side." So I think she's also just, like, realizing that, like, this is the role that, like, women are in. But then and I know I asked about Daphne, but we also get, like, Eloise and her just, like, being Daphne's exact opposite in the show. Like,
Mhm.
we barely get Eloise in the book. If we're Let's be honest, that's the whole point of Simon's. Like, Simon's mom died fulfilling her one thing that she felt that she needed to do, which was give not only a child, but give a boy. So,
Yeah, and I
yeah.
think like societies like what is success in society at that is a very different
Mhm.
conversation than what is happiness and what is
That's true.
contentment. And
Mhm.
that's when I think when you see that, like, yeah, of course she can be happy, but just answering the first part of your question, it's like, well, that's like your role is your role,
Yeah.
and then like how does she, like, achieve that? And we see her, like, she was always fighting for that family, and if she couldn't have that family, making the best of what she could and showing up. You don't see it at all in the book, really. You don't see her really going and being the Duchess a ton.
Oh, yeah, we
Like,
don't.
you
Yeah.
don't see that, like, that's, like but in the series, you do see her, like, trying to show up in different ways and be a good duchess and, like, listen to the farmers that are having a hard time putting food on the table and trying to advocate with her husband to, like, help them and everything. But I do think, like I think we see more of the eldest daughter struggle in this series than the book. 'Cause
Mhm.
you don't have as many of those B characters in the novel. So
Mhm.
I felt like in the book, I didn't see a lot of, like, that eldest daughter struggle as much, as the series.
Okay, that's
But
fair.
also, with having 3 older brothers, I feel like and the time period, I think the elder daughter image is very different than it is today.
Oh,
Like, in our
1000%.
current society,
Yes.
because, like, I see almost more elder daughter struggle in Antony's story than in Daphne's in the
Yeah.
books themselves, because he has all of this responsibility and all
Mhm.
of this weight and such, whereas, like, she does need to marry up. She sets that expectation. They do a wonderful job in the series of, like, really, like,
Mhm.
seeing that, like, internal pressure and everything, but, like, then if we, like, flip over to season 2, like, I see the
Yeah.
eldest daughter struggle more in Andy's
Oh,
story.
no, 1000%. Because also being the eldest daughter, like, the song is also talking about, like, the eldest daughter, like, being the daughter, but then also, like, the eldest child. And Anthony, in this book too, and in the show, he, like, wasn't taking responsibility. Like, at the end of the day, the family line rests on him. Like, he's gonna control he controls the money, he controls this. He's lucky enough that if he ever did wanna walk away, there's quote unquote "spares," to choose from
Mhm.
after that, but, like, he does have the eldest daughter. He has to have this society expectation, um, but he's gonna walk away at the end of the day with the title, the money, and it's Daphne who's gonna be like, "Oh, she married a duke. Eloise now gonna become more favorable. Francesca's
Mhm.
gonna become more favorable. Hyacinth. So you're 1000% correct. It is a
Yeah.
different Anthony does go through his he does. I appreciate it
Mhm.
too. Like, quite frankly,
Yeah.
appreciate it, yeah.
I will say, like, kind of going back to, like, the second part of the question on, like, how does she succeed and everything. I actually, like, have, like, a slightly it was a theme that I noticed a lot more in the series is the theme of, like, her choice and her coming into choosing for herself and finding power in that, and I loved, like, watching that, like, kind of progress through the series, and it's like, it might not be, like, an outward society, like, success, but, like, I viewed it as such a success because we see her really starting to come into her own. I feel like she was so concerned about all of the outside appearances and all of this that maybe it was kind of like not like people pleasing, but like kind of like doing whatever she needed to get through. And I feel like we like see that progression throughout this story of her like being more comfortable and confident in her choice and, like, taking more, like, ownership and feeling, like, a little better, and so I was like, that's, like, kind of like the win for me of seeing her story.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think the win at the end of the day is she gets what she wants. She gets the
Yes.
family, but like I said, she also was at some point content with just having nieces and nephews. She was at some point content, in doing that, and in that time, those were the wins, and you needed to take it. Like, so glad I'm born in this time because we have so many issues with this time, let me just be quite honest.
That's another
Oh, glad
podcast.
that's
That's
another
a different book.
conversation, yeah. But at least I was born in this time where I know where babies come from very early on. Uh, but thank you, Anna, for joining. We will talk about the next book, Anthony's Story. We'll compare again, same thing, we'll go to the book, we'll compare the show. By then, we probably will have a little bit more of Benedict's story already out if you wanted to watch it, so we can definitely talk a little bit on that too. But until next time, thanks. Bye.
Thank you, bye.